G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff, Ukraine War Update for the 25th of July 2025. I'm your host, the author David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood of Cade, Power Games, Into the Elsbound, and Erotic Tales from the Empire. Part 1 is available now. All 4 books are available on Amazon. All my links are in the link tree. Thank you to all those who support the channel. You can support the channel by buying my books, buying my merch, and, of course, my books. Now, my Patreon books and all my other links are in the link tree. Now, not much is in the news. There is still ongoing unrest over the anti-corruption agencies, although many have endorsed the restoration of their autonomy. But this was followed by Zelensky extending martial law and calling up for general mobilisation. So he's called for another mobilisation. So somebody's supposed to be, oh, wait a minute, that's right. Did I not tell you? As soon as he held the talks about ending the Ukraine war, what's he do? Did I not tell you he would go for a big push, call for a general mobilisation, and throw everything he can at the Russians? This is obviously a training centre, and it's been pummeled by various drones. Fighting, of course, continues even after, before, after, and during. Both sides have said they've made progress. There was an overnight drone and missile attack. Of course, the party's always right, comrades. Ukraine only says they killed Russia, only attacks civilians and only kills civilians. Women and children only. But protests continue in Ukraine. People are still not happy. Zelensky has not done enough. And, of course, military aid continues. Now, India shipped 1.4 million US dollars, I believe, worth of explosive compounds, according to Reuters, despite threats of sanctions. Zelensky, of course, blames Russia for everything and has submitted draft legislation. He hasn't actually done it yet. It's only a draft. So his announcement that he's done it is a lie. Of course. He's stalling for time. The only law that he passed, of course, is another mobilisation. And, of course, extending martial law, which automatically extends his presidency. Oh, well, what a hard bill to pass. All right, so Ukraine is borrowing another round of money. What a shock. But, of course, what they don't mention is Ukraine's losing. You can tell by the map. Now, of course, there's lots of Russia's advancing. We'll get to the all those markers are announcements. I thought it was going to be an offensive. Nope, that's where it's going to be, because that's where they're evacuating. So we know the Ukrainians are preparing to take the Russians head on in this region. Otherwise, they wouldn't be evacuating civilians. Which is a lie. Most civilians are already evacuated. They're just virtue signaling, of course. But there are areas where there are civilians. Now, Kharkiv and Nikolaev has been hit, and Kherson. Here we have Ukraine signed into law the extension of martial law and general mobilisation. Zelensky has spoken, comrades. Now the number of wounded in an airstrike allegedly has increased to 12. Kerensky, there's an explosion. Do we actually have video? No. There we have. A little bit. Alright, so as we go around the map, you can see Sumi's been hit, still fighting in the buffer zone. Not much has changed there. Kharkiv hit, more of the usual. Same with the buffer zone, more fighting without any change. Fighting along this line without any change. Fighting on all the usual places without any change so far. There's only a little bit of change here in the last 2 months. And despite advances previously, I mean, don't forget that they've been here for a while without advancing. And as you can see, the Russians are closing in on Koromuska. They're hitting the bottom line here. They are moving up here. They've advanced here. As you can see, as I said, circle round, bang, they take that entire territory. They're no longer, they're giving the Ukrainians, looks like they're giving the Ukrainians 2 weeks, and then they start closing the gap. So we'll see this one next. Fighting here. Fighting here. As I said, did I not say the Russians were going to come up here? Ukraine has finally figured it out, and voila. They're preparing for the Russian assault. They were already prepared for this. Look, all this is mine. They're already preparing for the Russian assault on here. They finally figured out, yay, the main assault is going to come around the side. They figured it out by watching my videos, of course. But they're going to come up here and turn all this into a cauldron and slowly ensnare up all of this and close it off. And tens of thousands of Ukrainians within 6 to 8 weeks will be dead. If Zelensky doesn't call off the war. Explosions. Yeah, Ukraine occasionally gets a missile off that gets through the Russian air defenses. But there's finally admission that Russia's advanced here. Although, as I said, they're coming around Polov. They're going to seal this off, come through here, and then if they don't retreat, bang, they're going to smash it. And they finally figured out, well, they'll come up here. But they'll turn this into one big cauldron and literally smash everything inside it. It'll be the bloodiest fighting of the war since the invasion. Or liberation, depending on which side you support. But, in the meantime, they're going to do the same here. They are trying to close this off, and they are trying to close this off. Seal this fate. Now, they are operating, as you can see, the predominant fighting is these two battle groups. Not saying that these battle groups, they're just obviously tying the Ukrainians up. I don't see them taking the rest of Zaporozhye now, or Kherson. I see the focus completely on this. And we're going to see a clash that hasn't been seen on the scale. This is... Okay, let's analyze this war by comparing it to others. It started Panama incursion style, reached the intensity of the Korean War, and then sort of early Vietnam War. We're in the early stages now of World War I, where we see trenches and tanks. You say, but Dave, World War One didn't have tanks until the later part. Yeah, that's true. But consider the tanks not as tanks were used in World War One. Consider the tanks as mobile artillery. Right? They're not tank on tank battles in mass. The biggest battle I've seen so far, I think, was 32 tanks. And that was actually back in the beginning, I think, Kiev. And they said, oh, hundreds of tanks. It was 32. Now, they were in groups of 4. They went past their defences and got struck by missiles. You fuck around and find out. Alright, so obviously this is not going to be red tomorrow. They're not going to pour through here tomorrow. My guess, it'll start, more markers will start appearing on this line. And we'll see tomorrow. As I said, there was a missile strike, but I think this is the warm-up. I think tomorrow we'll see a lot more. And then we're going to see them every few days, and we're going to see most of this red. We're going to see red on most of this, but we're going to see markers on these towns. I think Putin, this is the month of grab. Remember the end of the Korean War? Remember the end of World War One? Remember the end of World War Two? They're all different, but Korea and World War One had something in similarity, and that is the month of grab. When peace was announced, they didn't go for silencing of the guns immediately. They went for a land grab. And then silence the guns. As soon as the guns were silenced, they just tore Germany a new asshole. So that's what's going to happen. I think Russia's realising that time is up, and they're going to grab, well, I don't know exactly how much, but I think they're going to tear through Lyman, tear through Zavotsk, and try to lay siege to all this as they tear up through here. Now, I think they're going to tear it in half. I don't think they'll get it all. I think they'll manage to tear it in half, and we'll see the bloodiest fighting. We'll see anywhere from 10 to 100,000 dead in the next couple of months, if the scale indicated here is accurate. You don't evacuate such a large territory if you aren't preparing to put in thousands of troops, if you're not preparing for a battle. And I think this is going to be an offensive. I think the Ukrainians and Russians are both going to be on the offensive. You're going to see a clash eventually along this line, and it'll be definitely known as the clash of the Lyman. You'll have the Battle of Lyman, you'll have the Battle of Zavotsk, and Pavlovsk. Those will be the 3 big battles. There'll be big battle here, big battle here. Well, initially here, then here. I'm pretty sure this will fall. I'm pretty sure this will fall. This will fall by default as they push through. But I think this corner, I think the Ukrainians, one, are going to pour in through here constantly, and they're going to pour in through here constantly. And this corner will be just a battle, an entire battle group. This will be an entire battle group, and all this will come in for Lyman. And the Russians you'll see hardly anything anywhere else. I think the Russians will be, I think we'll start to see more earthwork videos appearing. That is, I've seen some, but this is mostly, quick trench digging and training. But by the looks of it, they're building huge hills. Now, this is only training, but I expect that in the next 6 weeks. And I think it'll cut short. I think 4 weeks, and then, it'll be over. Hopefully. Otherwise, it'll bog down, and the US will start a new round of sanctions. Another 6 weeks, India and other countries will start getting sanctioned. I think Europe will start to get worried as Russia's because once Russia takes this, if they prolong it, Russia will take all this. If they cut it short, they only lose half, and they don't lose Zaporozhye and Kherson. But if they prolong it, Russia will take all of this and dig in along this line. They'll come down through here, digging in, layers of defences. And you'll start more and more. Okay, all these blue lines are clashes with drones and drone strikes in red. So, but over the sea is as of 21 drones. Air defences headed for the Russians at Krasnodar and the Kursk Bridge and Sevastopol. Sorry about the bad pronunciations, but as you can see, hardly any movement elsewhere. This is going to be big. This is going to be red. And as you can see here, even this, the pattern is emerging that they'll just pull through here, cutting all this off. And Hungary's warning them. If you go past, this war is lost, if you keep going, you're going to lose even more territory. A year ago, he tried for a ceasefire. If you look at the map a year ago, okay, half of this, okay, then we're just past Donetsk. Half of all this, right through, okay, to this border. Half as much. And it can be lost in a matter of seconds. Remember, Russia could unleash missile after missile after missile and literally devastate half of Ukraine in a matter of days or weeks. People are rallying against Zelensky. They do not think he is passing the law, that he's buying time. He's right. He didn't pass the law. He only said he would. And everybody's he's playing games. And it's a gamble. Zelensky, of course, is fighting. Thousands have been chanting shame, echoing the past. And it's the turf war. Struggle between two camps in Ukraine's elite. They are now definitely split between Zelensky and the remnants of the former Prime Minister's political machine. Zelensky dismissed the Prime Minister, and that is what sparked this quiet discontent in Ukraine, which culminated in a series of laws, including all the way down to passing a law recently to ban more political rallies, to ban the anti-corruption movement, and he started rounding up more people, and everybody just said, too much, right? They could believe that this minister was corrupt, he was in procreations, the cost of food was high, it was somebody to take their frustrations out. Now, with the cost of food still high, they're questioning whether or not they actually arrested the right person, or that it was just a scapegoat, and that the true corruption is Zelensky and his buddies, that he just threw somebody under the bus. And you can see the worried look on his face when people ask questions about what's going to happen. And many in Ukraine believe they're close to the war they don't want. Now, I don't think it's going to be nuclear, but you're going to see basically a systematic destruction, building after building after building in these towns here. Lyman, they'll smash all the way through, just smash it. Building after building will be smashed. They'll sweep around the towns. They won't go through the towns, they'll sweep over the towns. Basically, form a new front line all the way through, pretty much cutting the Ukrainians off, funneling them down into this cesspool. Okay, they'll funnel them, and you can see, cutting off these roads, right? They'll be fighting up here, and as the Russians come through here, now they'll form a new front line. They'll do that. They'll put 300,000 to 400,000 through here, bubbling out. But there's just columns all the way through. Artillery, men, digging in. They'll just be digging in, constantly digging in. While tanks and artillery pound linemen, and they'll just keep advancing, digging in each as they go, just bulldozing, and they'll bypass the towns, cut the roads. The Ukrainians will slowly be will be starved out. Everything will come under artillery fire. They'll just keep digging in and pushing through, laying siege till Seversk. And once as this all collapses, Soloviansk. Sorry, that's Seversk. So they'll lay siege to this within 1 to 2 weeks, smashing all this as they'll put huge pressure on the Ukrainians. But they'll be fighting here. So effectively, the Ukrainian army will be split. Half their army here and here. Sorry, a third of their army, a third of their army, and a third of their army. And this third will be under constant pressure, while these two are hoping not to engage, but they'll be pressured. But the Russians will be using that to bog them down here and here. While they take this, bog them down here and here and here. Probably mostly fighting around here. So while the Ukrainians try to hold this stop the Russians coming up here and here, they'll lose some of this, but they'll be holding them here so they can keep this road open and try and feed men and machines in here in their offensive, because they want to push through to Donetsk. They want to cut the Russian army in half, even though if you're in the Russian V, they're just going to basically pound you from both sides as you. So while they take on this on what they think is the flanks, they'll soon find that this will just pound. And of course, as you can see, the pattern through here, up through here, up through here. This will just fall onto this. And if it goes past 6 to 8 weeks, all this top half right through here will be red. And this will be a bloody battlefield. And this line will crumble, all right, down to here, and they'll be in a cauldron in this right through here. The Russians will keep pushing up to here until they ensnare them. And that'll be very close to the deadline, if not close to it. Of course, that is the worst case scenario from Ukraine, but the best case for the Ukraine is they still lose this half. The best case they can possibly hope for is maybe cut this off. Maybe. But I doubt it. I think Russia will be Ironically, these markers, they're Russian targets. Okay? Where do you think the first waves of drones and missiles and heavy artillery is going to hit? Yeah, the rally points. Okay, there'll be hits in Dnipro and hits in Mariupol. You'll Kryvyi. There'll be hits here, and there's Dnipro. Yeah, 1, 2. There's crossroads here, 3. There'll be hits here as well. But most of them will just be small, probably cluster munitions mining the roads. Both sides will try to mine as much of this as possible. That'll slow down, and probably that will pretty much decide how much munitions they can get into this. It'll depend whether or not the line stays where it is, cuts it in half, or they lose a lot. But there ain't a scenario going past, I think. Once more sanctions hit the Russians, once Trump doubles down, there'll be, I think, we'll see whether or not Zelensky's fate. Ukrainians will kill him. He is done for. But whether or not they can pin it on the Russians, I think Europe and the Trump deranged will always blame the Russians for Zelensky's death, but he sealed his own fate, okay? The Ukrainian opposition are just done with him. He's denying them a living. They have nothing to lose now. They'll kill him because it's the only way they can survive. He's just too selfish to survive. Time is not on Zelensky's side. Every day he loses more land. He should have embraced peace. Instead, he remains closed-minded, rejects every proposal, and people are rallying against him. And the rally cry is the same as 2014, Ganba, which is allegedly Ukrainian for shame. I think it's a moral shame. I think but Zelensky doesn't even have all of the army anymore. That's why he keeps changing leaders. He's trying to appease the EU, but not enough to restore full control to Western-funded agencies. The protest may grow or fizzle depending on how much foreign patrons, and this ain't Russians, this is Americans. Okay, America is, and I think Lindsey Graham's one of them. I think Americans are preparing to oust Zelensky so that the Russians don't oust Zelensky, and that would be a good thing. If the if suddenly there was an announcement by the US that they're sending in a stabilization force, that Ukraine has collapsed, and Zelensky, and there's a coup against Zelensky or something like that, the war's over, folks. It's over. Zelensky cannot survive a coup. He cannot fight a battle on two fronts. He can't even fight a battle on one front anymore. He's dependent on foreign mercenaries, dependent for everything now. Okay? Most of his troops are only holding position. Okay? They're slowly pushing back. But not enough to stop the Russians, only enough to slow them down even further. But if the Russians unleash another Armageddon like they did, and they do it every couple of days like they did in the last couple of weeks, you'll see thousands of Ukrainians. You'll see body swaps every day of 1,000. That's, and Zelensky sending men and eventually people wake up and realise that Zelensky's purposely sending men to their deaths so he can take their land and sell it to foreigners. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and please support the channel. You can support the channel on Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, or in my profile. Or, of course, you can scan the QR code on the screen. Please and thank you. See you in the next video. Bye for now.